I'm Corwin Ericson, graduated from the MFA department in 2000, I think. And I'm reading from the essay Scavenger from the Massachusetts Review. The moose carcass lay on its side in a boggy sump. It was imposing, architecturally large. It had been opened up by scavengers. The exposed side was mostly skeletonized, but the underside was intact and not yet putrid. The contents of the rumen smelled a little beery. It did not have antlers. I couldn't tell how it had died. It hadn't been butchered. It wasn't roadkill. It's probably nearly impossible to shoot a moose to death by accident. Old age or disease, I figured, or hoped. If it was a predator, then something very capable of killing me was nearby. I hiked back with wet socks and squeaking boots, hatching plans. The first order of business was to tell someone who would want to come and help me poke it with a stick. It's interesting how quickly one can sort through all of one's friends and decide which of them wants to see a dead moose and can be cool about it. My friend Dale was the obvious answer. I emailed him a photo of the carcass, and he called me back seemingly before I'd ever pressed send. I think he'd been taking the bus home from work. He said he just had to get home, tell his wife, change his clothes, get his dog truck, and he'd be right up, but he had to be home for supper. In his 4x4, I sat on his dog's seat, with my feet on his unliftable tow chain in the well. Sweetie, his ancient, arthritic, and possibly blind and deaf dog, sat on me. It was after sunset, and the narrow power line road that forded the pond was flooded hub-deep, but we had no trouble. When I found the site, they lifted Sweetie out of the truck, and while we were speculating on the moose's demise, she waded out to the carcass and settled down inside it, lapping at the gore-streaked water. I watched a flotilla of bloated ticks, too fat and round to swim, push off toward her. Sweetie looked blissed out, supine in the nascent muck. We were all there out of curiosity, and because I wanted the skull. At the site, we took inventory. I had a flashlight, hatchet, pruning shears, sheath knife, folding saw, and trash bags. Dale had trash bags, a headlamp, an axe, hatchet, crowbar, machete, bear repellent, loppers, a folding saw, chains, a big clasp knife, heavy rubber gloves, a big pair of snowshoes for standing in the swamp, and snacks, most of which I think is standard issue from his truck. We looked over our gear and the carcass and agreed to keep the operation on the QT. We agreed that female moose do not have antlers, but this could be a bull that had lost his. Dale asked if I'd checked for a penis. I said I had, but not carefully. He hefted up a leg, and we looked. We agreed that we would have seen it if it were there, unless it had been eaten. The axe was the right tool to begin the job. I stopped my friend and told him I thought I should do it. He asked if it were for religious reasons. I said no, it's because I'm going to keep the skull, and he shouldn't have to do this disgusting work. He reminded me that it was his axe, so I stepped back, and he severed the nape. He asked if I wanted to keep the ear and cut around it when I declined. After that, we took turns trying out tools. The tissue was easy, but the hide was tough. I was making a hash of it with my sheath knife when Dale took over with his clasp knife and made short work of it. He said I needed to sharpen my knife. I felt like a sidekick. After we finished our job, we tidied up the site some and tucked the neck flap under the body so the decapitation wasn't so obvious. We smoothed away some of our tracks and flicked maggots off our clothes. As Dale drove us to my house, I kept pushing wet Sweetie, who smelled worse than the moose head, off my lap. Thank you.